Only around 33% of the original English settlers are still living in Jamestown. Most have died from starvation, and some have left Jamestown to live among the Indians. The settlement is practically on the verge of collapse, as it was so often early on in its life. Luckily for the starving colonist, Captain Newport's fleet is spotted off the coast. This is what historians call the first supply. Unluckily for the starving colonist, most of the food on Newport's ship was eaten during its long transit across the ocean. To add more strife to this situation, one of the supply ships has been lost at sea. The ships brought around 60-ish men with specialized skill. The goal was to make the colony profitable. A couple days later, a fire broke out, destroying the church, a kitchen, the storehouse, multiple houses, and most of the supplies. Only 3 dwellings survived. With desperation gripping the colonists firmly, John Smith and Captain Newport decide to meet with Wahun in an attempt to secure some food via trade. They took 30 to 40 men as guards, a pinnace, and a barge, and headed to Werowomoco, which is basically the capital of the Powhatan Confederacy. When they arrived at Werowomoco, they were greeted with a large crowd, the high chiefs dressed in their best clothes, and Wahun with his many wives. Smith gifted a red cloak, a white dog, and a hat to Wahun, and Wahun declares a perpetual league and friendship with the English, and offers Smith and his men dinner in his home, giving each man about 5 pounds of bread. John Smith requests for provisions and land, to which Wahun replies that Smith shall have what he wants once him and his men lay their weapons at his feet. Smith counteroffers, and asks that they trade hostages, and promises to Wahun that the English will eradicate their enemies, the Monacans and the Pocoftanaks. This pleases Wahun greatly, to which he exclaims, "All my citizens should not consider the English strangers or pass-upons. They are Powhatan. Their corn, women, and country should be one of us." Newport and Wahun trade hostages, an Englishman named Thomas Savage for a Powhatan named Namatak. This may sound strange, but this was not a new concept. Monarchies have been trading hostages for centuries as a way to keep peace. Newport then requests to trade copper and tools for food. Wahun says he wants to see all the tools and copper before deciding how much corn he would give. John Smith was outraged, claiming that such a move was an ancient trick to lower the prices for one party. Regardless of what Smith thought, Newport agreed to the trade. The English received 250 bushels of corn, which should be enough to last until the end of winter. Sadly, Newport has inflated the value of European goods now that the market has been flooded. Captain Newport left for England on April 10, 1608. He brings back ores to be tested to see if they have found any minerals of value yet. On the ship is Edward Maria Wingfield, the now disgraced ex-president, and Namatak, the hostage from the leader of the Powhatan Confederacy. The colonists in Virginia get to work rebuilding all that was lost in the fire and improving the fort. The lost ship, the Phoenix, captained by Francis Nelson, arrived at the colony. To the colonists' delight, the ship brought a lot of food and provisions. The ship was blown off course and landed on an island, and on that island, the ship's crew gathered as much as they could. This ship didn't just bring food and provision, but also 60-ish men. The population of Jamestown is now up to about 150 settlers. Francis Nelson then loads lumber and a sick colonist onto his ship and sets off for London, England. John Smith recruits 14 men to go on an expedition, to primarily find gold. A secondary motive, as explained by James Horn, during his last visit to Werowomoco, he had gone down the Pamunkey River with Wahun. The chief's description of its people and his boast of how they were forced to pay him tribute beads. He might have speculated about the possibility of winning over allies against their common Indian foe, the Powhatan. This journey amounted to no gold. They also didn't win over an ally, but they did gather many fruits, berries, and animal furs. When John Smith arrived back at Jamestown, apparently there was a mutiny. It's not quite clear, but what happens next is that Ratcliffe is deposed from presidency and replaced with John Smith.